welcome back to another exciting edition of one of your favorite podcasts, certainly one of mine.
Certainly one of ours.
Old-Timey Times! And this week, we were really, really treated.
Very excited to watch this one, actually.
Yeah.
I saw the stage play way back in the day, and man, was I blown away by it. And while the movie from 1925 is very different from the stage play, it's also very much the same because it's based on a book from 1910, a French book.
Yeah, and it's iconic. It's lasted.
It's classic. You've heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's lasted literally a century now.
Yeah.
This story has persevered. And it is Phantom of the Opera. The 1925 version. And
from Universal Studios.
Yep, directed by... Let's see here, Rupert Julian.
Ooh.
And also, the way they described it on IMDb is it was uncredited, but also directed by Lon Chaney and Ernst Lamille.
Ooh.
Yeah, so a couple, and who apparently had some drama.
Ooh,
Yeah.
internal workings drama.
Yeah. There was
Nice
apparently...
to know that was always around in the film industry. That
Always
there's
drama.
Internal drama.
We like that tea, but apparently Rupert did not get along very well with the cast. Which, I mean, directors gotta direct, but...
Actors gotta act.
Actors gotta act, so maybe, I don't know. But specifically, it was the scene with the chandelier that they argued over.
Interesting.
Yeah, they didn't like the lighting in the scene or something like that, but apparently
It was a little choppy, but I think that was supposed to be choppy because it was like rocking back and forth, so they tried to make it look like it was coming in and out of the light in terms of the the actress on stage who was being filmed at the time, which I believe was Christine. She was doing her singing part, or no, Carlotta, was on stage at the time.
Yeah.
Because Phantom was PO'd about that part.
Yeah.
And she was doing
I didn't want you to sing.
You're not supposed to be up there. It's supposed to be my Christine.
And I am the Phantom of this opera.
This is my opera.
I don't know if you've met me, but I kind of make call the
show.
shots, sir. Yeah, well, specifically about that scene, and it's the most iconic scene, I would say, in the movie, in the play, in the
show, in the people's knowing of the show. Like, oh, isn't that the one where the chandelier falls? Like, yes, it is.
Yeah, and apparently, what's-his-face? Rupert Julian wanted to cut to black after the chandelier dropped. And it wasn't Lon Chaney or the other director, but it was the guy who I think kind of originally gave him the opportunity, which would be Carl Lamille. He was like, that doesn't make any sense. We need to show the audience suffering. It's like, we need to show the aftermath of it. So he just like fucking was like, okay, wink, wink, and like shot the scene, I guess. Again,
the way he wanted
it to. I was like, wow, that's a move.
Multiple takes. So lots of people do that nowadays. Like, we'll do it your way once, and then we'll do it my way like 1,000 times.
Yeah, and it will be my way that ends up in the feature film. But it's better. It's better that way. I wouldn't have wanted it to cut to black. I want to see the aftermath. So.
Yeah. Because there was other lights. There's other lights in a theater. It's not like a chandelier is the only light in a theater. Even way back then, I would imagine. Like, there were other lightings. There were sconces and...
Exactly.
Maybe not the floor lighting like we have nowadays and, like, different kinds of lighting. But there would have been other lighting in the theater.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess the argument could be made if you wanted to do realism. Like, the lights would go out after the chandelier was out.
It would be chaos and pandemonium and people wouldn't know.
It's a movie, so...
We gotta see what's going on.
You gotta see what's going on. The lighting has to be, not always realistic to the time period. But, God, it was really exciting. I was surprised about... It's almost like an action film.
Nice. Yeah, much less horrific, I would say. Like, there were some moments that were really creepy, and, like, the great Phantom reveal was really good. Yeah. When Christine first rips off his mask when they're down in his boudoir, or his organ room, if you will.
Yes.
And she takes the mask off of him, and he's all like, ah! Like, that was a really good reveal. And then there's some creepy moment where somebody's creeping up through the shadows, and there's just the light on his face, and the light gets bigger and bigger.
That was a weird scene.
That was a weird scene.
Didn't quite understand what was going on there.
But it was a creepy scene for sure. But the lighting in that scene was also really well done. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's like just a creepy moment. But you're right. I think it definitely read more as an action film than a horror film.
At least to me. But, this was the very first of everything, being portrayed on film. So it's got to start somewhere. So, I don't think the tone was very, very clear. And going into it, I don't know why, but I had it in my mind that I didn't like Phantom of the Opera at all. Like, I really thought that Phantom of the Opera was written in 1980s. And I thought it was like a musical to start off with. Like, I had no idea it was a novel. I didn't know it was an old film. So I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But
well,
you know,
if you saw the 2004 film and that's your only take on the show on Phantom of the Opera, that one's not the best version by far.
Yeah.
It's very much like, well, I'm on the outside of this thing watching it, but I'm not dragged in, not pulled in.
I didn't get it.
Like, it wasn't very engaging. And like, I saw the film, the stage play in oh my God, I was in 8th grade, so I don't even know what year that would have been.
Yeah.
In the 80s, early 90s, and probably in the early 90s. And in Toronto at the Pantages Theatre, which my understanding was built for the show. And it was just an amazing show. Like, it blew my mind. It's one of the things that got me into theater in the first place. It got me into film. It got me into so many different things because it was so captivating and it really pulled me into the show. And like, that movie from 2004 didn't have any of that quality where you're actually like invested and you feel like you're a part of what's happening.
And I do think that is what put me off, because I'm almost positive I saw. All I remember is like the scene where they're in the basement and he's like in a canoe and just like tons of candles and like 80s music blasting, and I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, I don't like the Phantom of the Opera. It doesn't make sense and I don't like it. But now that I've gotten to witness it again, I think it would clearly be so cool to see it on Broadway.
It was amazing to see it live.
Yeah,
because that whole scene where they're in the basement, like they're on stage and the canoe is moving through this like foggy mist and candelabras are rising up out of the stage floor. Like, it's phenomenal. It was phenomenal to see how did they do it? Like, how did they make that happen? How did they make this possible? And that, I think, is the magic of seeing something live on stage versus even watching a film. Like, nowadays we know it's 2021 right now. Like, we know, like, oh, they did it in CG, or oh, they did it in post, or oh, they built a model. Like, we know those things nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, and even in this show, like, there wasn't any major effects that were like, oh my goodness, how did they do that? Like, it was very straightforward in a way.
It was. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. There wasn't a lot of fancy trickery like we saw in some of the other stuff, like in the Golem and
or Faust,
or which, like, let's be honest, is like that shit really can take you out of the movie if you're a 2020 mind.
Because it can be so, like, fake looking.
Yeah, it looks weird because we're just so used to CGI now and it being almost seamless.
Yeah. Getting to the point of seamlessness now, especially.
Which is what I respect about the movie. You know, I think they did a really good job with scenery. It was very realistic.
Yeah.
I thought. There is, like, it takes place in this grand opera house of Paris, and it's a beautiful, like, theater, and down below the theater, the kind of story of it is there are haunted
torture chambers
and catacombs upon catacombs underneath this opera house, which is where the Phantom lives. And he's got a sweet pad down there.
He's got his own little thing going on.
Yeah. And I thought...
He lives in a boat.
He sleeps in a boat. He, like, has a gorgeous... sort of apartment down there that is, like,
got an organ that he plays his own operas on.
It's like decked out in silk and, like, ornate, and he has, like, a whole bunch of beautiful decorations down there. The opera house itself is really cool. You kind of get to see a little bit of the backstage life in some of the scenes, but it mainly takes place right in that opera house and below.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great thing to do.
It's a great setting for a show, like a show within a show.
Yes.
Because you get to see moments of, like, they're putting on a play, and then you get to see moments of just watching the film or watching the story unfold as if they're real people. And I think it's a great dynamic to portray a story.
Yeah, I think it ages well.
It does.
It does age very well because they try to, I think, keep it really, really grounded, which I think is always, that translates very well.
Yeah, like, just the beauty of watching the dancers perform for a brief moment. Like, it's just something that's beautiful and something that kind of sweeps you away for a second. Like, oh, wow, this is captivating me. And
I like that... the makeup wasn't overdone. It wasn't like the stuff that we've seen come out of Germany with the really heavy
Dark
silent,
under eye makeup.
yeah, which is really, really like cool to me though. Like it's really cool, but it wasn't too much. I didn't think the reveal of the Phantom's face was too much.
Yeah.
Either. But it was still like horrific, and he clearly had like a, you know, misformed face, but it wasn't a mask. It wasn't, you know, it just wasn't overdone. I would say the only thing that was
obviously done. Like it was obvious that Cesare in the cabinet of Dr. Caligari had like black gunk under his eyes for miles. Like it was obvious that was the makeup they put on him.
The golem was legit, like looked like a person that you put clay on. and some of the costumes were weird. I don't know. It just, maybe they were really good for the time. I don't know, but
this one had some beautiful costumes, some beautiful dresses. You had mentioned you wanted to wear some. Like, can I just wear that out nowadays?
If I could make a plea to like bring back some sort of fashion, I wish we could take it out of this movie and bring it back, because I just want to wear just like over the top opera dresses with like long pieces of scarf for no reason,
long
and I
trains,
just want to drag it behind me.
Frilly arms.
Yes, I want braids that go down to my asshole.
Yeah.
I want like the very like curly kind of like hair
ringlets.
Thing. Oh man, I'm in if we all want to collectively get together and make that change to fancy wear. Then I'm in. Just call me. I'm ready to do more history bounding in my life. But yeah, it was really, really beautiful. I guess I say that we still try to recap a little bit.
Yeah, we can recap.
And okay, so I mean, Phantom of the Opera is iconic. I know that everybody knows this story. I didn't. I straight up didn't. So it is, the Phantom is a escaped convict of some sort that got exiled to an island because he's criminally insane.
And then he escaped.
He somehow escaped, and he became part of this Phantom House, or this opera house, apparently just really drawn to the theater.
Self-trained musician, as it was stated in the film later on. Yes. Self-trained. So.
And he falls in love with a singer in one of the opera. Her name is Christine, and if you watch the musical, that's the iconic soprano.
Yeah.
Oh man, it has nothing to do with the silent film, but I do love, like, I know of some of Christine's melodies in the musical and her high notes, and I was like, I love that. I do really like a good soprano.
Yeah.
So he falls in love with her, but she is kind of tentatively taken by this man named Raoul
de Chagny.
Yeah, and they're kind of off and on. I do like Christine's attitude in the beginning. She's like, listen, I'm focused on my career.
He's all like, now that you've got what you wanted and you sung in your first show, we can focus on our love now. And she's like, but I want to focus on my career.
Yeah, she understudied from one of the prima donnas
there,
Carlotta, and she got to perform one night in her place, and he was like, well, you got to do that. You did that once. Wasn't that fun? Come marry me now.
Yeah,
like,
now
you're done,
now
right?
we can get married. And she's all like, but my career is just taking off now.
She's like, I can't leave the opera, honey. You know this. I'm married to my work. And he's like, oh, drat, but I'll keep working on it. And then you slowly find out that the opera, there's a ghost somewhere in the
Phantom,
theater.
the ghost, the opera ghost, as they call him. They
doing
call him
weird
the Phantom,
shit.
They call him the Phantom of the Opera, they call him the opera ghost.
Yeah, apparently he has run amok for years around.
He likes to hang out in box 5.
Yeah.
Because one of the early scenes is when the previous owner of the opera is selling it to these new young chaps, and they're all like, ha ha ha, it's our opera now. And he's like, leave box 5 for them, for the Phantom, because he's going to take over your show. And they're all like, ha ha ha, you're mad, you silly fool, ha ha ha.
They go, you jest, monsieur. Which is my new line.
New fave line.
New fave line, you jest, monsieur. And yeah, so it's basically, he's like, oh, kind of a legend. Like, not really
legend
real
around
yet.
the show. You know, some of the cast has been chatting about him. They're like, ooh, so-and-so knows, and Uwe K knows.
He doesn't have a nose. No, he has a really big nose. Like, you know.
We saw him in the shadows once, we swear.
Yeah, which is, like, first of all, you gotta ramp up your security if that's, like, the issue. If, like, people are
this
seeing
is like
him.
1925.
I know. It's just, like, you gotta find out whether this thing is a real ghost or a real person lurking around your place of work.
That's true, because if it's a real person, you gotta put that on.
You gotta get a kibosh on that. But hey, and so the Phantom starts becoming a more real character, and he is writing Carlotta, and he's like, Carlotta, you gotta pretend like you're sick a couple times, like
don't perform in this play. Christine is going to be singing Marguerite, not you. And Carlotta is all like, I don't
Carlotta's
think so.
very affronted because she's like, I'm going to sing. I don't care about what this Phantom's saying. And, like, Christine's not going to take my place. And then she tries to do that, but that's when the chandelier breaks.
That's right.
Yep. So she is told to fake ill. And I think that this is after the first time that she, I think, was poisoned and she couldn't go on. And then the second time he leaves her a note, he's like, you need to be ill, quote unquote.
And then mysteriously she falls ill.
Yeah, but the second time she's like, fuck you. I'm going to go on stage. And she does, and then that's when the Phantom releases the chandelier. And that's when, like, everybody's like, oh, this is a real person, like,
this
doing shit. Like, around the house, and we've got to figure this out. And I think during the time that the chandelier, so that tragic thing happens, and at one point, he steals Christine.
After the chandelier falls, he steals Christine and takes her down into the catacombs. And she's all like, kind of under a spell. And he's all like, I'm your master. I'm the one who's been teaching you how to sing so well. I'm the one who's been giving you this gift. And she's all like, I don't know. No, okay, wait, no, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, pulling her down the stairs, and
he's like trying to send her notes, you know, before he fully kidnaps her. And he's like, oh, I'm helping you out. Like, I'm fucking with Carlotta. In so many words. Like, I am fucking up Carlotta so you can have the spotlight. Don't you love me for that? Like, didn't I do a good job? Like, I'm your master. Like, I'm responsible. He's basically saying throughout that he's responsible for her voice, which I don't like.
Her gift.
Yeah, I don't like. It's like, no, you sabotaged my understudy.
My overstudy, if that's a word.
Or my overstudy. You basically, what was that girl who knocked out the leg of that other skater? Ice skater?
Tanya Harding.
Yeah. He's like, you're basically Tanya Harding-ing it right now. And that's all you're doing. I studied very long to have my voice. Anyway, that's what I would say if I were Christine. But she's just kind of is a fainter, as most women are. In
every film that we have watched so far, this is film number 6, there's been a gigantic female fainter.
Yeah, that's their go-to move. So she's kind of under the spell of him, and she does end up singing through one play that he apparently, like, got the role for her for, and he sabotages it somehow and kidnaps her. And he pulls her down into the catacombs. And
gets her on a boat.
Yeah.
Gets her on the boat where her train is actually trailing in the water, which was really beautiful. That was actually a really beautiful shot. It was a really beautiful moment.
I would
Not
say...
that Phantom is a beautiful guy, but just watching her train kind of follow her in the water, that was really...
It was gorgeous, yeah. I mean, I think...
was a moment.
You know, if the director did have beef with anybody, he set up a good scene at the very least. I think that Christine's outfits were the best in the show. I just they're just my type of outfits, man. They're so...
She does look pretty striking.
Yeah, she's gorgeous. Her hair is beautiful. Again, the makeup isn't too much. And this, like, has this flowy piece of fabric that God love her, she's just holding. I don't know why she has it. It doesn't have anything to do with her outfit, but she's just holding it, and she's dragging it along with her as she's in the little boat that looks like a boat that you would see in Italy.
Yeah, the
gondola boat. And it's just dragging behind her because he's wooed her down into the catacombs and into the deep catacombs of underneath this opera house. It's like levels, and it's like concrete archways and so many stairs, and it just looks so elaborate. And so he is bringing her to his section of the catacombs, which he resides in.
His boudoir.
And he shows her like the apartment.
his fancy apartment. He's like, I live here. What do you think?
And it's very decadent. It's like a gorgeous apartment. It's an apartment that like reminds me of Gone with the Wind. Have you ever seen Gone with the Wind?
I have not, actually, if you can believe
my
it.
God.
As much as a film person as I am, I have never seen Gone with the Wind.
It's good. It's very racist, but it is
rough.
It's very interesting. And there's a point where Scarlett O'Hara is in her like wing of the house, and she's in this gorgeous like draped apartment in a huge bed, and like I just think about it and I'm like, that's my life. Like that's what I need to get there, because that clearly is where I need to be, is like in a silkened room. And there's like candles everywhere. This is the Phantom of the Opera now, but it's just a really cool interior.
Yeah, and he's got like an organ, and she breaks into his bedroom, and she's like, "Oh my God, you live here!" And he's like, "Yeah."
And he's like, "We're gonna keep you.
You're gonna fall in love with me. I'm in love with you. You're gonna fall in love with me, and it's gonna be great."
And then there's a point where he's like, "But listen, there are rules. You can't take off my mask."
Yeah.
And she's like kind of a little kid in this way, where she's like, well, I'm going to do it.
And, like the next day, he's like all playing at his organ and la 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 la, doing his thing. And she's all like creeping up behind him, like, should I? No, shouldn't I? Maybe I should. No, shouldn't I? And then of course she does.
Yep. And she takes off his mask, and like for me, I thought it was good because, again, they didn't do a ton of prosthetics. I think clearly they did, but didn't look fake.
Didn't look, especially when the black and white that was going on, like it didn't look too overdone or too underdone or too like, oh come on, that's obviously this or obviously that. Like it was just creepy.
Yeah, and I thought like the most striking features were his mouth. His mouth looked like just bad, like
bad teeth,
jutting out teeth, kind of.
Some missing, some jutting out too far,
and it definitely gave me, and this is admittedly not a series that I really watched, but it gave me oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Harry Potter fans out there. Who's the bad guy in Harry Potter?
Snape?
Voldemort. Yeah, he looked a little like Voldemort.
Oh, there you go.
With the nose.
With the nose, the kind of missing nose, almost snake-like, and
yeah, and there's like something about his like undernose to his like upper lip, and he has like no lips. It's very, very odd, and he definitely has like the eyes that are just really beady, and fun fact, Lon Chaney was rumored, or I guess allegedly, put egg whites in his own eyeballs.
Yeah, spooned egg whites into his eyes to make them look cloudy and creepy.
Yeah, and it does. It works really, really well.
Yeah.
But she like rips off his mask, and she's like half scared of him, half intrigued by him. And he's like, how dare you! Like, look upon my deformed face, like, glut yourself upon my face. And he's just like, listen, she's like, I'm so sorry, like, my bad.
Whoopsies.
And she says, I will be your slave forever, no problem, just let me go, because now I'm really freaked out. And he's like, I will show you the depths of my love, and I will let you go, but if you talk to Raoul one more time, or if
you're in trouble.
Yeah, if I see anything like that, it's over.
You can't ever see him again. And she's all like, no probs.
So she gets set free. And I guess she gets set free conveniently around the time of a big masked ball.
Masquerade, the ball masquerade.
Yeah, in Paris. And
so the whole opera house is celebrating. Everybody's in their full regalia with their masks on. And
oh, yeah. Totally dressed up.
Totally dressed to the 9s and the 10s and the 11s.
And there's like this scene where I guess it must be in the opera house, but it's like a really grand staircase and it's just flooded with actors. Like they had a ton of extras.
A ton of people.
They really made this feel like a big city, you know, that is celebrating, and they're celebrating on the steps and there's so much movement. And she had written to Raoul saying like, listen, I know I said that I couldn't talk to you. That was old me when I only cared about my career. Now I'm being stalked by a phantom and things have changed. And she's like,
I want to see you again.
I really want to see you again. And I think her thought process was like, we're all going to be in masks, so no one will recognize me.
Know. Phantom won't know. No one will ever know.
So she ends up seeing Raoul at the ball. They go upstairs.
They go to the roof where they can have some privacy.
And then
Phantom shows up at the ball, all regaled in red, with this cool skull mask on.
It's really, really cool. It's what I want to be for Halloween. It almost looks like a cross between like a fully red Three Musketeers outfit with a skull face.
Nice.
Yeah, and it looks badass. And this is where I realize in the film, this is where it's like, okay, what version of this did we see? And how many edits did it go through? But this was in color. This was straight up in color.
This was straight up, had some color going on. Because you could see the variances between all the different costumes and all the different masks. Like, you could see black masks, you could see white masks, you could see black outfits, you could see red outfits. And when the Phantom shows up all in red, you could see him in his red cloak and all of his red regalia. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we saw a restored version that had some color put in.
Or if, because that was the only scene. That was the only scene in color. So
and when Phantom's on the roof and he's in his red costume, he's in his red. When he's standing on the statue and
that was all black and white.
Christine and Raoul are talking, and that's all in black and white with their filters that they put on it. And then you see Phantom clinging onto the statue in his red regalia, listening to them carry on about how they're going to run off together after the next show.
Yeah, so he basically follows them upstairs, and it's another really beautiful scene where they're on, like, the statue tower, and they're talking about how they're going to, where she's like, listen, I have this crazy stalker, it also happens to be the Phantom of the Opera, and
it's the guy.
And, like, we got to make a plan to get myself out of here after the next, song that I do, the next
show.
thing.
Like, we're gonna do Faust, and it's gonna be cursed. Right. And if I got to do the show, but I got to get out of here. And so Raoul's like, well, we'll get you out after the show.
We'll get it's something like a broquier or
brochet or something.
A brochet, which is a type of fun horse carriage.
It's just a carriage.
It's just a carriage. It's a horse carriage. He's like, I'll have a carriage up near the back of the stage door so we can go right out after your song and we will flee to England.
We'll go to England together.
And, of course, the Phantom of the Opera is clinging up to the statue, kind of King Kong style, in his red cape and his red outfit.
Flowing out, billowing behind him.
She's betrayed me.
How could she? I love her.
It's like, I gave her voice. It's like, no, you didn't. He is entitled. This is what I want to say about the Phantom. I think he's very entitled. And now I know that he's criminally insane, so there might have been some mental illness there. He's definitely deformed. He must have had a hard life up until then.
Hard childhood growing up.
But to walk into an opera and say, I'm going to make the business decisions, first of all. I'm going to choose who's going to be the lead singer in the plays, and you have to do what I say. He's kind of like a bully.
Yeah.
He's a bully, and he's a little entitled, and he's like, oh, look at Christine. I don't care what she thinks. I love her.
She's mine.
And she is mine. That's rude, and it's coming on too strong, buddy.
I mean, he calls himself her master. That's pretty...
It's like, is this a BDSM relationship? And did you get consent? No, you didn't.
No, you didn't get consent.
So there's a problem there. And yeah, I think the character of the Phantom of the Opera is tragic in a way. And you do sort of feel for him, but I don't think they really spent a ton of time in this movie trying to make him out to be like a sympathetic character at all.
Not particularly.
No.
Because they pretty much level it out that, like, he's in love with her, but he's also crazy in love with her. Like, he's Looney Tunes.
Yeah, he's kooky.
And then later in the story, when he starts taking, spoiler alert, when he starts taking people's lives, like, that's when you really know he's gone off the deep end. Like, he becomes irredeemable at that point.
Yeah, and I think what I was kind of wanting is a little bit more of a, maybe, like, Elephant Man sort of journey, but I think also it's because I didn't know anything about the Phantom of the Opera, so I thought in my mind that was what the story was going to be.
More. And I think more in the stage play, they kind of redeem him more in that way, where what I remember from the stage play when I saw it is that he does let her go in the end. He lets her and Raul go, and then the rest of the cast comes to get him, but he does let them go, and it doesn't happen that way in this film. He really holds on to her until the bitter end.
I mean, he is a very scary, insane figure.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they did a good job with that. I think this is one of the first, like, stalker films. Like, crazed fan stalker film.
Yeah, like, super fan.
Yeah.
Gone off the deep end. Like, I'm in love with you, and I'm the only one who can have you, and if I can't have you, no one can.
Exactly. And they did a really good job of that. Yeah, it was different than I expected, but I liked it. And so the Phantom knows about their plans. It's not like, and Christine is like, oh, God, I just know we're going to get caught and he's going to ruin everything. And he does.
That's what happened.
He kidnaps her off stage again and brings him down.
Right? She's singing on the show. And she's doing fine, and then in the middle of the show, he, like, grabs the ankles of the...
Oh, yeah!
of the conductor, and pulls the conductor out from the show, and people are like, what?
It's definitely a yoink situation, and then he, like, pops up in his place. It's great. It's like a Scooby-Doo type moment. And she's like, ah! And he brings her down to the basement again, and now everybody kind of saw this and knows what's going on, and they're like, we gotta go get
wig
this
on stage.
Yeah,
like, oh no, something's gone terribly awry.
Yeah, someone took Christine. We gotta go find her. At some point, some guy gets hung. Like, he's also known, the Phantom is also known as, like, the Strangler of some sort, and I guess he, like, hangs a bunch of people. I guess he has in the past, otherwise he wouldn't have that nickname. But, yeah, kind of a new element to the story. He also hangs
Somebody's,
people.
like, raising or lowering the curtain. He's pulling this big pirate's wheel.
Yeah.
And he sees this body hanging, and he's like, oh, my God. And he runs away, and he goes and gets a bunch of other people, and they come running out, and he's like, I swear the body was just here. And then it's lying on the ground, and this guy's clearly dead.
And he's like, oh, my brother, he knew too much about the Phantom. So basically a lot happens at once and everybody's rallying to find the Phantom in the catacombs, but it's such a vast underworkings under the building that it's hard to find. But the main people that are trying to go find him is Raul and some sort of secret detective.
Secret police guy who's been working at the theater, the opera this whole time.
Yeah, and he's the one that explains to us, or eventually throughout the movie, that he was an exiled, insane prisoner that has escaped. And he's like, your Phantom and this guy is one and the same. And I'm going to go try to find him.
I'm here to get him. We're going to go get him. So they're doing the whole, like, Punjab lasso, bring your hand to the level of your eyes thing. Mm-hmm. So if you keep your hand at your eye level, then when the lasso drops on you, it won't necessarily choke you to death because your hand is going to catch it.
Yeah.
So they're walking around with their hand up by their eyes.
Apparently they just think that people are slinging fucking nooses from the ceiling that could come down at any moment.
At any second and grab you by the neck.
But if you keep your hands up, like literally raise your hand next to your head,
next to
then
your
when the
eyeballs.
lasso comes down, you'll have like your hand so it won't choke your neck. So they're running around the fucking caves with their hands up. It's pretty good.
They find a lantern, which is nice because it's probably pretty dark down there.
It must be. And they start kind of looking for Christine. And other people are coming down and looking, and it's still Christine and the Phantom in their beautiful underground apartment. And he's like, ooh, what was that? Is that a collar? And
Yeah, there's this, like, contraption that keeps knocking down, and he's like, oh, there must be a caller.
Yeah, and so he's like, Christine, you stay here, and she's like, no problem. And he goes out because there's a bunch of people coming down, so there's this one particular guy, I think it's the guy who got hung's brother.
Or Raoul's brother, I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah, it could have been Raoul's brother.
I think there's two brothers. There's one is Raoul's brother coming down to the catacombs to look for him, and the other is the brother of the guy that got murdered.
Who's Bouquet.
Yes.
Yep. Again, hard to keep track.
You really got to pay attention on these silent films to see who's who and who's related to what and what's going on.
Like, no one's ever pointing and being like, you're Mr. Bouquet. It's like a scene happens and then you read about Mr. Bouquet and you kind of have to guess that that's who that was in the scene.
Yeah. And then every time he's mentioned again, you have to be like, oh, that must be Bouquet. Or anytime you see him, you're like, oh, right, is that Bouquet? Or is that...
Or like, there'll just be like a piece of dialogue that's thrown up on the screen that's like, my brother, Mr. Bouquet. And I'm like, okay, so I guess Mr. Bouquet had a brother and he's upset and okay.
Okay, next day, now his brother's mad.
You gotta pay attention. So he goes out and he has this reed. So like
he pulls this reed off a wall. He's got a couple of them sitting on a stand next to his boudoir door, his apartment door.
Yeah, because apparently he does this a lot. Enough to need a rack of reeds.
A rack of reeds.
And he climbs down and he goes underwater because the whole like corridors are filled with water. And some guys in a boat, possibly Bouquet's brother, possibly Raoul's brother. And he has like this little reed that just kind of like a little kid or like a cartoon. There's some elements of this movie that is cartoonish, I would say.
A little bit, yeah.
And so there's like a reed popping up in the water and he's breathing under. It's like a pole, like a PVC pipe kind of deal.
Yeah, but like a reed,
breathe.
like an old-fashioned kind of reed.
Yeah. And you see the little pipe kind of above the water inching towards the boat, and he flips over the boat and drowns the guy, and then he makes his way back.
Apparently, Raoul or Bouquet's brother can't swim.
No, he has never learned how to swim. He's immediately dead.
He's like immediately dead.
Drowns instantly. And meanwhile, Christine realizes that Raoul and the secret detective is close by her.
Yeah, they fell into the Hall of Mirrors or whatever it was called, because that's part of the old torture chamber part of it. So they're stuck in like some kind of mirror world.
Oh, you know what? I just think I fully put that together.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like, why would being in a mirrored room be torture? Right?
Because you can't get out.
Yeah,
you think that the door this way is the door that way,
I guess
right?
You're right.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. It is confusing, and it would be annoying just to be in a mirrored room.
It's very disturbing. It's very disorienting.
And side note, one of the I'm going to go on a tangent. One of the scariest moments in my life was I was in a horror house, like a haunted house in Amsterdam. And it was called the Dungeons of Amsterdam. And as you walked through it, there's like a whole bunch of like, this was the craziest thing in my life. Or not really, but it was so wild because there was like a roller coaster at the end of the ride and it was like in a building. It was wild, but they had this whole building set up so you could go through rooms and hear stories about the plague, hear stories about like the dungeons or the torture chambers or different stories, different legends in each room. But it was a haunted house and it was me and my boyfriend at the time. And one of the rooms was a mirrored room and it was so scary. I hated that room the most. First of all, I was in Amsterdam and I was just out of high school and I had never been high before. I had never really smoked weed at that point in my life. So one, I was high.
Yeah.
And I think I got to preface that with everything. But this was the scariest. I seriously was like, this is the most scared I've ever been in my life. And I was like, now looking back, I realized it was like a circle room with a pole in the middle. And I was just running around the pole because I was so scared and I couldn't find my way out of the mirrors. And each mirror made it look like a old stone corridor. Like if you would look at a mirror, it looked like it was going on forever and it was like a stoned corridor. So I'd try to run through it and I couldn't get it. And I was just running around in circles and I was like, I gotta get out of here! I gotta get out of here! Like it was absolutely terrifying. I was so scared. And they had actors because at some point the mirror would fade away into the a two-way like a window, and it was like a woman behind the window.
Oh,
and it was so scary. It was if you're ever in Amsterdam, go to the Dungeon of Amsterdam, if it's still there. I don't know. It's wild. But I can get how that would be torture. But what makes me realize this is as Christine is trying to talk with them and like find a door that leads to their room, the Phantom comes back and discovers that they kind of found each other, but there's still like a
she's
wall
trying to
between
find
them.
a key and
Yeah. There's a lot going on. But somehow he turns on lights in the room, and the lights heat up the room, and I was thinking the mirrors would be reflective to heat up the room.
Right.
So it's a hot room.
It's a hot room. It becomes very hot for them. They start taking off their vest and they start taking off their jacket, which I was like, oh my God, how risque it must have been for these kindly gentlemen to be taking off their shirts and their vests and their outer garments. And I mean, they keep their shirts on. It's not like that risque, but I was still thinking like, oh my God, these gentlemanly gentlemen taking off their jackets. This must be such a racy film.
I know, like, ooh. And they don't even kiss in the film either. So it's it's just a different time. Yeah, they had a really lovely hug, which was very nice.
It was very supportive.
Which I appreciated. You don't need it sometimes. It's not it is a romance story, but that's not like the most interesting element. So yeah, if you don't need it, you don't need it. So I realized that it wasn't just a mirror room full of mirror torture. It was a hot room, and the mirrors helped it get hotter. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So Phantom's trying to burn them alive, basically, and he's like, do you want to save them, or do you want to be my wife? Or, like, listen, I'll either kill them, or you need to marry me, and that's the deal.
That's the deal.
And
they find their way out of that room.
Eventually.
They do. They find a little lever in the floor, and they pull it up, and they find a trap door. And they go down the trap door again, and they find themselves in another room that's full of gunpowder.
Oh,
And then the Phantom goes and he starts playing his organ again. And I don't know if this is related, but this is just how it happens.
The organ controls things.
Organ controls things, apparently. Because he starts playing his organ again, and then a gate closes, and they can't get up out the steps because now there's a gate that's closed. So they're trapped in the gunpowder room.
Yeah. And
then
I thought it was going to take a different turn. At that moment.
Point?
Yeah, because I was like, if you have a gun room or full of gunpowder, then you expect an explosion. You know what I mean?
Right? That's what I was thinking, too. Like, there's going to be some kind of big explosion, or there's going to almost be an explosion, or there's going to be a fire that they're going to put out at the last minute.
Yeah. And I think he threatens that, but it doesn't actually go to fruition. It would have been interesting to see if it would have. I kind of wish it would have. Just to do, like...
another turn.
But, I mean, it was still action-y. It was still good. But he was, like, basically... So they're trapped in this second room because there's trapdoors everywhere, and you can just, like...
It's a torture chamber.
Yeah.
It's a whole catacomb of torture chambers. So.
I mean, it makes sense. And he's like, listen, he has this box with a figurine grasshopper and a figurine scorpion in it. And he's like, turn the grasshopper and blow up the opera house. Or you can turn the scorpion and that will be a yes for you marrying me. Again, very elaborate,
and very much like, okay, well, why?
Yeah, it didn't make a ton of sense, but that's okay.
And why do you have this contraption in your really cool apartment?
And why does one blow up the building? Like, how does that even happen? But, there's this great dramatic scene, and he had, like, pulled some sort of lever that drained the water out of the corridors and into this room that these two guys were in. So the water is, like, rising in this room.
In their room. And the catacomb water level is falling.
Yeah, and she turns the scorpion, and I think that's what sets it all off. And he's like, oh, yay! And
you love me.
And then there's, like, more people this is where it kind of, like, reaches a peak in the movie. Like, people are moving outside, and they're really trying to find the Phantom. And, like...
They've got torches and everything.
Yeah.
They're after him in a big way.
she's basically like, please don't let them drown. I will do anything you say. Just save them. And the Phantom does.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah. He opens a trap door in the floor to his apartment, and they
Another
happen to
trap
be
door.
They pop up right there. They happen to be literally right there.
Right under, as the water's rising, they basically rise up to the trap door, and then he drags him out. And then he gets super pissed because
Christine runs to Raoul.
runs to Raoul and is like patting him on the head. I thought this was a very interesting acting moment of like, oh, like she's kind of like a baby or like a dog, would pat a dog, and she's like just trying to comfort him. And the Phantom of the Opera gets super pissed. But I think at this point he realizes people are closing in on him, and then I forgot. Does he have Christine when he runs out?
Yeah, he grabs her and they run out together.
Oh, that's
he drags
right.
her out together.
That's right, because he gets into the brochet.
The bruchet or
whatever
the
that
fancy carriage, the fancy horse carriage. As
He's
we
like,
mentioned earlier.
he's like, I remember that they had a plan to get in the carriage and run away after the show. That
So
carriage
that's
must
now
still be
my
there.
plan.
So he gets Christine and
So the carriage driver is like snoozing on the carriage, and the Phantom just runs up and throws him head first off the carriage.
fucking kicks him right in the fucking face, and he just like gets him right off the carriage. Again,
He
this
goes
is why it's a
flying.
good action movie. There's
Yeah.
like combat.
Now here comes the chase scene.
Yep, he throws Christine in the back, and then he's like, yaw, with the horses. And then he, like, runs off
They
into
go
the
running
night.
off.
And then Christine, she's kind of badass. She just rolls out of the car. She's
Yeah,
like,
I was like, good for you,
fuck
moment.
this shit, I'm out. And
I'm
she
out
just...
of here. She jumps out of the carriage
Yeah.
and rolls on the ground.
And
they're being chased by a whole mob of people with torches. Like, a whole mob of people are after them, including Raoul and the secret police guy.
Yeah,
Everybody's
we just
running
know as
after
secret
him.
police. Like, and so like it's like a mob of people after them, and the carriage breaks, and the Phantom has to get out of the carriage.
And go running on his own 2 feet.
Yeah, and he realizes he lost Christine, and in the crowd you see Raoul pick up Christine, and you realize that they're gonna be back together and be okay.
They're gonna be okay.
And the poor Phantom, but not so poor because he had it coming.
Killed a couple people at least.
Killed a couple people, gets surrounded by the mob at one point. This is the very end scene. A mob comes in on this side, and he raises his hand up into a fist, and it's almost like he has something in his
Like
hand.
a dagger or something.
Yeah, so the crowd kind of goes and stops, and then the crowd comes in on the other side, and he raises his fist, and the crowd stops, and they go, oh, what does he have in his hand? And then he reveals he has nothing in his hand. And he's like, nothing! I'm
So
fucked.
they converge on him, and then we start beating him.
Yeah, they beat him to death.
They beat him, and then they throw him in the water.
Yep, and it kind of fades out on, like, bubbles.
Bubbles, and then Finis. And then that's it for the Phantom.
Yep, and that's...
No sequel there.
That's it. Yeah, no sequel there. That one's done. But I think overall, it was a very thrilling film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the music had a lot to do with it. Again, it would be really interesting to find out... I highly doubt they had color technology at the time. That must have been done in post. You think?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Because we've seen movies even from 1926, like
No, weren't
the last
in
one we
color.
watched, that weren't even in color.
So I guess we'd have to...
So they had a lot of... I'm sure they had a lot of filters that they could use. Like, they have, again, the blue
yeah.
for night and the dark green for when it was dark inside of a building.
But those must be actual physical...
Filters that they
Yeah.
put over the lens. Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you guys know, like, please let us know.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna try to put these up on a YouTube channel. Please, like, if there's anything you know about, like, technology, that personally is what I'm fascinated in, and I would love to hear if you guys know whether that was actually intentional, and if that somehow the Universal Studios had, like, sleeper technology that they were sitting on, or if it was done in post. My guess is it was done, like, in a recreation of it, a restoration.
Right, restoration part of it. They did also have some vocalization, some singing.
Yeah.
In like 3 different scenes they had singing. They did nothing to try to sync the voice movement with the voice with the lip movement. So that was a little bit
That
funny.
was jarring. That was definitely jarring.
It's like, oh guys, you didn't even a little bit try there? Or did you try real hard and just miss?
Someone just, like, making mouth movement and then someone else singing opera
completely separately and
not lined up
from it.
But I do like, because I think this was the first time we really heard like a single voice. I think there was some choir work in Faust, but like as far as like single voice, like operatic vocals, that was new for me.
That was new,
at least watching this series,
and a little bit like surprising and jarring almost. Like, oh my god, what am I hearing? What am I even hearing?
I think it's an interesting film, especially the restoration that we watched, because it had that color in it. But it was sort of the beginning. Of some technology sort of coming together and starting to make it look really, really real.
And Lon Chaney is apparently very famous for being a horror film actor of the time. And I thought he did a great job. You mentioned that you thought Christine was nailing it on the silent film acting.
I do, yeah. I
thought it really had. She had like the arm movements down, and she had like the angles,
and this is something I've talked about before. Silent movie acting can bring you out of the thing so hard because you're just not used to the over-the-top movements. I think this one matched up really well to the tone of the film because it was so actiony and action-packed that the overacting didn't necessarily bother me
or distract from what was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, it made it the stakes seem higher.
Yes, they did it well. They just did it really, really well. And again, Lon Chaney would be an interesting one. Let us know what you feel about like Lon Chaney, and if you want to see a series of him, I think that could be fun.
That. Yeah.
But another interesting point that you brought up was they re-released the film a few years
in
1930. Yeah,
with sound, I think. With sound.
But what does that mean? Oh, you mean like sound like dialogue?
I don't know. I haven't seen the film. It was just like they re-released it. I just read it on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like I have a whole
that's true.
Fucked up knowledge about it.
Okay, so that would be interesting to find out what they mean by that. But
they re-released it with some sound, and it launched a horror movie path of the Universal monster movie era with Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Invisible Man coming up in the early 30s. So it's very interesting to hear that like this really paved the way.
We owe a lot more to Phantom of the Opera than I originally thought. That's for sure. I really just thought wrong on this. Like it's kind of like a product of. It's interesting being born in the 90s and kind of catching and still having like a true love for older movies, which I do, but some things are just like out. I don't know. It's interesting to see the iconic culture in its original primary source. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but things like, Michael Jackson's Thriller with the hand movement, that really iconic hand movement.
Like from Nosferatu.
Yeah, that's the first one we did, and I realized, that's a reference I always knew that I thought Michael Jackson invented.
Right? Or his choreographer invented.
Yeah, because I was born in the 90s and don't know any better. But now that I can go back in time and see where these like iconic pop culture moments come from, I just feel so much like I know so much more, and I feel
that Rob Zombie music video that pulled so much from The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yes, that's so cool. Like I just thought Rob Zombie made it up. No, people watch cool things and get inspired. Like, I don't know. So I feel like I'm catching up a lot on history, which is really good. And I will say I flipped the script. I turned the tables. I liked the Phantom of the Opera.
How lovely.
Yes. So
wonderful. We hope you like it too if you decide to watch it. And if not, you've basically watched it here with us. So thanks for joining us once again.
Enjoy it. It's really thrilling.
It's a good
and
ride.
So this is going to complete the series. You want to do a little kind of this is kind of what I was maybe going to say. This is a series. So we wanted to start with a series of horror movies. Old silent film era horror movies, just to start getting our feet wet in this world of podcasting, and something that we really wanted to do for a long time. And this will be like kind of the first season, is these first 5-6 episodes. Yeah. There's an episode in there that we haven't decided on yet fully. It might be 5, it might be 6. We'll let you know. But we're going to be, thinking about our next series and having it come out soon. But we really, really hope you enjoyed season 1 of Old-Timey Times. And please give us your suggestions, your feedback. We would love to hear it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much again for joining us on this series and for this first season. And we've really had a great time doing this. I know I've enjoyed myself. I know Jamie's had a great time.
I've loved it.
And we hope you guys have had a great time too. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your night, your evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I hope you're you feel
life.
loved and safe.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.